Hello, everybody, and welcome to the PHLY Eagles podcast on a Friday high noon Memorial Day weekend. Strapping in for the grid of discussion, or tick Zach Bow, as somebody said on Twitter. What on the grid? We're thinking, Zach.
On the grid for the weekend, but that wasn't a good one. Let's go.
That's okay.
I'll defer the name choices to you. But excited for the show.
I'm excited for the show as well. Going to talk a little Eagles, a little around the NFL, I believe, and a little
Miscellaneous.
Is there a Mr. Miscellaneous?
Not that I'm familiar with.
All right. Well, I'm excited to get to it. Zach, maybe at the end we can also relitigate positionless football and all that good stuff. How you doing?
There's one other thing we have to get into today.
Okay.
A buddy of yours at Whole Foods, apparently.
Oh,
so
yes.
We'll roll back. We'll get into that. How am I doing today? I'm doing well. It's been a fun week of shows. Looking forward to the weekend with family. And then back at it next week for more shows and football practice.
There we go.
Yeah.
No Monday show on Memorial Day, so we will be back Tuesday at noon. But let's get into the good stuff. We got a lot to get to.
Yes.
You gave me a couple things to prep for, some other surprises.
Sure.
I'm ready to go.
Well, because the thing, too, just to give a peek behind the curtain, is we have to give a tease on the YouTube page, right? So we can't just say
Sure.
It's categories, right? There needs to be something. So we have to give a little something here. So anyways, what the game is that there's 3 categories: Eagles, NFL, miscellaneous. And for each of those, there's Would You Rather, there's Convince Me, and there's You Predict. So
Okay.
you can pick any of the categories and any of the questions, and there's a question for each of them. Bo has not been prepped too much on this, so some of them will be impromptu. Some of it, like I said, for the sake of teasing the show, he has an idea.
Okay. How about, Zach, we start, I think we should start Eagles. I know that's,
Yep.
You're the host today.
I'm not the host. I'm just the, yeah.
You're the, you're the designer.
Yes, okay.
For today's
Yep.
episode, and I know that you want to start with football. So let's go Eagles. Let's start with the Would You Rather.
Okay, so the Would You Rather is what the headline
we're getting
of the
into it right
show
away. I
is.
love that.
Okay.
Woodpecker, you rather, obviously.
Yes.
As Shay says.
The 2024 Eagles defense, expected defense, right? They could still add pieces, but what we expect of it now and the expected scheme against the 2017 defense, what we knew they had as the depth chart and what we knew their scheme to be. Would you rather have this year's defense, or would you rather have the 2017 defense?
And now, so we're framing this as how we felt about the defense heading into the 2017
Yes, so I should
season.
say that. That's not going into training camp, going into the season. So
Not
you're
like, do I think this defense will be better than what turned out to be the 2017 defense?
Well said. How do you feel going into the season? And I frame it going into the season and not going into training camp, because the Eagles added a Ronald Darby during the 2017 summer. So basically, that was when you came back onto the beat. Okay, you had been away. You came on 2017. You saw the team during the summer. They had a major cornerback problem. They trade for Ronald Darby, moved Patrick Robinson to the slot. But even still, we can go through what the depth chart was for that team. So basically comparing how you feel about this group and this scheme compared to that group and that scheme going into the season.
Okay. I think this is the 2017 defense, and I don't think it's particularly close.
Interesting.
And I think it's a good way to frame this, because we can look at the depth chart, and there are some good players on the team right now, and there are reasons to be bullish. But if you lay out the facts, it is hard to come up with any other answer. So let's go through some of those things, because this is the one that I did do some prep for. 2017. In 2016, the Eagles defense finished 6th in defensive DVOA and top 10 against both the pass and the run. The 2023 Eagles defense, finished 29th in defensive DVOA, 30 weighted defensive DVOA, 29th against the pass. So just where are they coming from the year before? Huge advantage for the 2017 defense. You look at the scheme and the defensive coordinator. We've talked about with Vic Fangio, you're maybe buying a floor, not necessarily a ceiling. Let's look at the past 5 years for Vic Fangio versus Jim Schwartz in 2017. And this is a nice little comparison, because for both of them, those 5 seasons are 2 seasons as a coordinator, 3 seasons as a head coach, as a defensive head coach. For Jim Schwartz, the 16 Eagles defense, as we said, 6th. The 2014 Buffalo defense, which he was the defensive coordinator for, 4th. And then his 3 years in Detroit as the head coach, 15th, 23rd, and 6th. So 3 of those 5 seasons, a top 10 defense. one a bottom quartile defense. For Fangio, last year with the Dolphins, 19th. The 3 years in Denver as head coach, 21st, 15th, and 11th. And then in 2018 in Chicago, we had that great defense, which was the best defense in football first. So one out of those 5 seasons, a top 10, and none in the bottom quartile. But I think the evidence there is, give me Schwartz for sure. And then you just look at like the players.
Okay, so this is where I was going to have that conversation. This is interesting.
And if I'm drafting the players from those rosters, Fletcher Cox is the number 1 pick for sure. 2016, 2017, Fletcher Cox. I think Malcolm Jenkins is probably the second pick. So I think they've got the 2 best players. And then it's a little bit more speculative. I think you could probably go Jalen Carter if you wanted to. If you really want to buy on that, you could maybe go for Darius Slay if you want. You could maybe make a case for Bryce Huff, I guess. But I think the middle portion of it is you're taking Brandon Graham. Maybe you're taking Jordan Hicks. Maybe you're taking Ronald Darby, who didn't turn out to be quite as good as like the trade price was. But I think if you just go unit by unit, the Eagles, the 2017 defensive line, I'm taking for Fletcher Cox. The edge situations are pretty similar, right? It's like
You think so?
a good group of depth. I guess you could make a case that you'd rather have Huff and Sweat than Brandon Graham and Vinny Curry. But I think it's similar, and I think Fletcher Cox puts it over the top. The linebackers from that 2017, way better. Hicks and Bradham, and even Michael Kendricks as the third guy. That's much better than they have right now. And then the secondary, it's more unproven now. You could tell me and convince me that this secondary is going to end up being better than that secondary, but those safeties were way better. And the corners you're just buying on Quinyon Mitchell and some unproven stuff. So overall, I don't even think it's close.
Interesting. Okay. I mean, obviously, the 2017 team ended up winning the Super Bowl, so that helps.
And they end up being third in DV.
Now, you look at it too, though. They did not have prolific sack production going into the year, and they did not have prolific sack production that season. I think they had 38 sacks that year, thereabouts. They had no one on their roster who had double-digit sacks. Brandon Graham finished that year with 9.5, but going into the year, Graham and Cox were not double-digit sack players. Vinny Curry was not a double-digit sack player. Chris Long, I think 1 year.
But yes.
But this year...
Brandon Graham at that point had never had more than 6.5 seasons, and he was coming off a 5.5 sack season.
Exactly. Tim Jernigan had not been like a full-time starter, right? So they had talent. I mean, certainly Fletcher Cox was an all-pro player, but Josh Sweat and Bryce Huff have more production, more sack production than what the Eagles had on the edges that year. Certainly Fletcher Cox better than anybody else. But
you got a first-round pick coming in.
You had a first-round pick coming in.
Yeah.
So that's why. So now, but then the Eagles have a first-round pick coming in at corner. We'll get to that. At linebacker, I agree that 2017 team has the clear edge at linebacker. Although from an accomplishment perspective, Devin White is more accomplished than any of those linebackers going into that year. Now, Devin White's coming off a bad year, but Devin White has been, at one point, considered one of the better linebackers in the league. Hicks and Bradham and Kendricks didn't quite have that reputation at the time. When you look at the corners were a major question mark going into that year. Jalen Mills had not been a full-time starter before. He was a 7th-round pick. Ronald Darby they acquired during camp, and like I said, Darby came with promise, but even still, there were questions about Darby. Certainly Slay, far more accomplished than any of those corners. Patrick Robinson, a solid veteran in the slot, but going into the year, you didn't know how he was going to be. Quinyon Mitchell is the top cornerback in the draft this year. That's probably it. Now, Derek Barnett wasn't the top edge rusher in the draft, but you probably look at them from a comparable
he was an earlier pick.
Yeah.
But I also think a first round, like a rookie edge player as part of a rotation, you have more reasonable expectations for than a first round corner who's going to have to be on the field every snap.
Fair point. Where I look at it, the 2017 team had a clear advantage in the middle of the field. The interior defensive line, the linebackers, the safeties. I think
that's well said.
I think this year's team has more talent on the edges and has more talent at cornerback. So it depends kind of what you're looking for there. I would say the 2017 team, but going into the year, there were questions. There were a lot of questions about that defense and the big upgrades the Eagles made that offseason. were really on the offensive side of the ball. So, yeah, it's an interesting thought exercise. I think what you said there about Schwartz and Fangio kind of tips it. I've been on record saying I'm a big fan of the Jim Schwartz defense. I like that style of defense.
Aesthetically, I agree.
I like the attacking 4-3.
Also, the results. I mean, for all of the league is chasing Vic Fangio. Like Jim Schwartz is head to head a far better resume as a defensive coordinator than Vic Fangio.
And the thing about Schwartz's defense that I always loved is they stopped the run too, right? Like they were always near the top of the league against the run. Now you would have liked to see more sack production from that team. They really didn't have great pass rushers. They were very good situationally, or at least on third downs. I think they finished the season, if memory serves, third in the league in third down defense. They weren't as good in red zone defense. They were 20th in red zone defense. I think they were first in fourth down defense. But going into the year, I don't know if we thought about them as like a Super Bowl caliber defense, and certainly the way they ended the year, they struggled against Tom Brady.
And a fair point, a super chat from Real Time with Prince Blue that Brandon Graham stopped Jim Schwartz from being Gannon 1.0, in meaning that the defense did not show up, but they made the one play.
True,
and it's true. They could not stop the Patriots offense in that game.
Okay,
but. Yeah. Over the course of the season, they were very good. And I also, if we're trying to get back into the mindset of entering the season versus entering this season, there's the little soft advantage of it was the second year in a scheme as opposed to everybody transitioning to a new defensive coordinator. That's why I think it tilts pretty heavily towards 17.
I understand Pro Bowls are not the barometer to be used, but this year's defense certainly has more accomplished players than that 2017 team, I would say.
Where? Just
on defense.
This team?
This team. When you look at Slay, at Devin White, I know there's questions there. At Josh Sweat, who's been a Pro Bowler. I guess just that.
Okay, so compare that to Fletcher Cox and Malcolm Jenkins and Jordan Hicks, I guess.
Yeah.
Or
That's
Chris
fair.
Long. Chris Long at that point of his career is like Darius Slay now. Like a guy who has played at a high level but is not the same.
I think going into the year, Chris Long then is like Brandon Graham now.
I think he was a little bit more than Brandon Graham at that point.
Well, I think he proved to be that.
Yeah.
But I don't think going into the year.
Yeah.
I mean, even from.
But I'm just saying, to say that Darius Slay has all these accomplishments. That's true, but he's also at the end of his career.
Yeah,
he's above Chris Long.
And Slay's one of the highest paid players on the team, right?
Yeah,
I mean, Chris Long was
that's a good point.
A bargain signing for them
right.
at the time. He turned into be.
But if we're just talking resume,
sure, that's fair. Okay,
yeah. Would you? So you think
I would go with that 2017 team? But I have a hard time, of course, in that case, like divorcing the results from the expectations. I went back to try to read some of my stuff going into the year, and training camp's always like spring training, right? There's always excitement, but the big question was, man, these corners are going to be a problem,
right?
And I guess you would compare that to the linebackers now, maybe, but they were really counting on like Barnett to be a major upgrade in the pass rush because so Barwin left after the 2016 season. Vinny Curry, they had re-signed Vinny Curry going into 16. He did not give them much pass rush production, and then he actually wasn't really used like in that way. And the Eagles didn't have much defensive tackle depth, which was why they ultimately moved Brandon Graham inside on third downs because their third D tackle that year was Bo Allen, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I agree. I like the coordinator better, and I like the top two players better, but I might like the overall talent on this year's team, although that is dependent on names like Devin White, C.J. Gardner-Johnson, Darius Slay playing to the name as opposed to, some of the inconsistencies.
Yeah, and I think it's a good, just to look at it, a reminder of that, the defense on paper looks pretty good right now, and they got a lot of depth, but just remember how bad they were last year. And I think a lot of that had to do with making that crazy switch to Matt Patricia in the middle of the season, but down the stretch they were like the worst defense in football, and there's a lot of improvement that needs to happen for that, for them to just be okay. And I think that the way that the team is built would tell you that they're only asking for the defense to be
okay. Exactly.
Okay, 12th would be. I think they would sign up for that right now.
I absolutely think they would sign up for that.
Okay. All right, should we move on? You good on that one?
Yeah. Well, we have 9 of them, so we should move on. We'll
I
get
felt
one
like
more
that would be a
before that.
longer discussion.
Exactly.
Okay, how about let's do. We did a would you rather, a woodpecker you rather. How about
No, we did not do it. Oh, yeah, we did.
that was the woodpecker you rather.
Correct.
How about we do around the NFL? You predict.
You predict. Okay, this is a good one here. Who's the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Giants in 2025? And the question here with the Cowboys is, of course, Dak Prescott is entering the final year of his deal, has a huge this is a major story out of Dallas. Like, are they going to re-sign Dak Prescott? Can they afford to? What's that contract going to be? The prices keep going up for quarterbacks. Is Prescott going to be a $60 million a year quarterback? And then we all know about the Giants situation. So who's the quarterback for the Cowboys and the Giants in 2025?
I mean, I think it is Dak in Dallas. It's so hard. I mean, they're screwing themselves from a financial standpoint, but I don't really think that Dak necessarily wants to leave, and I think it's going to be hard to actually replace him. I mean, he's going to be the highest paid player in NFL history at some point, but I can't really get there that they're going to let him go.
If they don't make a run in the postseason, do you think Jerry Jones would at some point be like, man, we hit our ceiling with Dak? But then what's the alternative? That's the other question.
And then the Giants, who are the top quarterbacks for next year's draft?
So it's not a great draft. Like we said, Carson Beck is a name you'll hear from Georgia. Shedeur Sanders from Colorado.
Well, we know the Giants aren't drafting him.
There are always quarterbacks who emerge throughout the course of the season, but I think you'll see going into the year Carson Beck and Shedeur Sanders are the 2 names that'll probably come up the most.
All right, and then so I don't think it's gonna be one of those guys. Is there anybody in free agency? I'm looking at the free agents now. I guess Tua is scheduled to be a free agent, but they're not gonna let him go. Russell Wilson, I could see that for the Giants as their
classy
bridge
player
guy.
going over there. He visited there this year. They didn't pull the trigger.
Could it just be Drew Lock?
Do they go after the quarterback who doesn't stay in Pittsburgh? Like if Justin Fields doesn't stay, do they go after Fields? But this is the thing. All those guys were options this year as well. The Giants are in a weird spot. That's why I thought they'd be aggressive for a quarterback this offseason. And you got to think, too, if they're drafting in the top 5 next year, it's probably not Brian Daboll and maybe Joe Shane like making that pick, right?
Yeah. I'm going to go Sam Darnold. Back to New York.
Okay, interesting. Wow.
I was between him and Mac Jones.
But I like Darnold more than Jones, to be honest with you.
Well, I think neither is great. But I think the Giants are screwed at quarterback.
Yeah. And
I guess Daniel Jones is probably the most likely answer.
I think what this shows you is that depending on how Jaden Daniels is in Washington, it's a good time to be the Eagles for like the next few years. Now, a lot of things could change.
It's been a good time to be the Eagles for a long time.
Yeah, but there are a lot of questions in this division right now.
No doubt about it. Okay. Do you have a prediction for the Giants quarterback?
Well, I don't think they're going to be good this year. I'm going to go Carson Beck.
No.
But let me see here. Let's go. I'm doing very preliminary NFL draft quarterbacks 2025. Actually, yeah, Quinyon from Texas is someone who's going to get some attention. I could see like if you want the prototypical Giants quarterback, Drew Aller from Penn State. You know, like your 6'5" drop back guy. Yeah. But it's
Lily White.
It's not a great quarterback draft class next year, and I think that was why there was a lot of speculation that like the Giants would try to move up this year. They had a first and 2 seconds.
Well, and it's very silly, right? The reporting that they would have gone for May, but they didn't want McCarthy. Like, I don't know. If you're going to take a shot at a quarterback, take a shot at a quarterback.
Fair point. Although you don't force it just because you have a need at the position.
Sure, but if you're willing to trade up for a guy, then why not just sit and take a guy? Also,
and they could have sat and taken McCarthy. They could have sat and taken Penix. They could have sat and taken.
They wouldn't have done that, but they could have done McCarthy.
They could have done that. Yeah.
Okay.
Someone said Arch Manning. Arch Manning's not draft eligible next year, so they can keep kicking the can down the road.
There you go. That's what they'll do. That does make more sense. All right. How about miscellaneous? Convince me.
Miscellaneous convinced me. Okay, so this one was actually changed a few minutes before airtime. And I'll give the quick story. I asked Bo, are you refresh me, because this show's been going on in different versions for about 8 years now. I joined 5 years ago. And Bo and Sheil used to have this conversation about like the beach or the lake. Like, would you rather beach or the lake? Bo didn't have a strong enough opinion. So actually, this is a good place to turn here because a lot of people.
I lean lake, but I don't.
Okay.
It's more in theory. It's not. I haven't really spent a lot of time on lakes.
A lot of people don't travel for the holiday weekend, and a lot of people come to Philly. Like if you're coming to the lacrosse Final Four this weekend, come to Philly. I got a note yesterday, or maybe it was this morning, from a longtime sicko who is coming to. I will read the note here. Visiting Philly in late June from NYC for a weekend trip with my girlfriend Flex, and wanted to see if you had some
Her name is
recommendations.
Flex?
No.
Okay.
If you had some recommendations for your favorite Philly spots. He said he knows I like food. I love Taconelli's for pizza. Any other place I need to try out. Could be fine dining, casual dinner, lunch spots, sandwiches, bakeries, desserts. We love to eat. So I'm going to frame this to you. Convince the audience, if you're coming to Philly for a weekend, you need to eat here.
No kids, right?
No
assuming.
kids. Yep.
Just the two of them. I think.
And for the purpose of this, we'll not do kid stuff. We'll do you're coming with your friends or significant other, that kind of thing.
I think you do. Now we're thinking like a 36-hour
Yes.
kind of deal.
Yep.
Okay. I think you do. A nice afternoon lunch at Park. It's a little down the middle.
Okay.
Not off the beaten path, but you get your people watching in. You get your Rittenhouse in.
Get your
a
bread
good little
in.
meal,
Yep.
yeah, and a couple nice cocktails. Then I think you're doing a dinner at River twice.
Okay.
On Passyunk, you get a little walk along Passyunk. That's a great dinner, and especially last year, the summer menu was like the best meal I had in like years. And then I'm thinking you probably do. I mean, you want to hit a cheesesteak. You're probably doing Angelo's, but it could be a long line. Although the summer the city clears out, you might have a good shot on the weekend. I'm trying to think if there's another. I would do you can do South Philly Barbacoa.
Okay.
You want to hit that. I think that's a pretty good lineup.
I like those for sure. As a pizza guy, I love Taconelli's. You got to reserve your dough.
Yeah, but you're gonna have to drive out to Taconelli's. If
that's
you're
true.
like coming into the city and you're thinking about the great thing is being downtown, you can walk all over the place.
You take an Uber, but or a Lyft. But I hear you there. My if you want to take your significant other out for a nice place to eat, my favorite restaurant in Philly is Vernick. Might be hard to get a reservation, but you can sit at the bar and get their beef tartare toast and their chicken. It's awesome. Everything at Vernick's great. And then if you love or if you're like me and you love seafood, you can go to Anastasia's on 9th and Washington. Really like that. Cheesesteak Angelo's. If you want to make a bit of a drive, you can check out the fine Johnstone Twins at the very nice Johnstone Twins at Food Chaser's Kitchen.
The foin.
There's so many good cheesesteak spots though. Woodrow's. I like Woodrow's on South Street.
Wow.
So
B-Doc just went down.
Oh, okay. But there's so many good places to go in Philly if you want. Look, bakeries, desserts. I've said my favorite cookie in Philly is the Urban Outfitters cafeteria. I don't think you can go there on the weekend. But that cookie is incredible.
Yeah, you're sending people far afield here.
Philadelphia is pretty,
but come to Philadelphia, walk around the city. That's
you can take the subway down.
and then to the Urban Outfitters. Like, come
You see
on.
different parts of the city. Yeah, someone says Weckerly's for ice cream. I like Weckerly's for ice cream for sure. There's a lot of good places. Maybe throughout the summer, I'll keep mentioning good spots in and around the city.
Okay.
But this is your exercise, so that was.
And you know what you could do while you're walking around the city, Zach,
that?
and to chase your food? How about a little Olipop? Because Olipop is the world's first functional soda with a classic soda taste and the benefits of plant-based fiber, prebiotics, and other botanical ingredients to support gut health. Olipop is a new kind of soda with only 2 to 5 grams of sugar and 9 grams of fiber per can to help you with that gut health, because 2 out of 3 Americans say they suffer from digestive issues, and 95% of Americans don't get the daily recommended amount of fiber. Olipop is tackling both of these issues with a drink that tastes just like soda. So good, and so many flavors to choose from. You've got your vintage cola, your classic root beer, your orange squeeze, your classic grape, your strawberry vanilla, one of the most populars, cream soda, cherry cola, Dr. Goodwin, and a lemon lime flavor. It's all available for you if you use the code PHLY20 for 20% off your next Olipop order. The discount only applies to one-time orders, not to subscription orders. Olipop is sold online at drinkolipop.com. That's DRINKOLIPOP.com. Or on Amazon, and it's available in almost 30,000 retailers nationwide, including Wawa, Target, Sprouts, Wegmans, ShopRite, and GoPuff.
Phillies are in Coors Field this weekend. If you want to bet the over for the Phillies, make sure you go on your BetPark Sportsbook app. Get in the zone with the BetPark Sportsbook app. Money is in the moments. I said Phillies Rockies this weekend. There's also the NBA playoffs are on each night. If you think the T-Wolves are going to come back against the Mavs, make sure you win big with all-day action. Win your first $10 bet and earn $125 in sports bonus bets. You play for fun. You love to win. You bet. Download the app and play along with us. Must be 21 or older. Please gamble responsibly. If you or someone you know has a gambling problem and wants help, call 1-800-GAMBLER.
All right, let's do miscellaneous Would You Rather.
Miscellaneous Would You Rather. Okay. Would you rather? So I have said on the show and in our past show, I grew up playing team sports. I didn't grow up playing individual sports, right? But I'm kind of getting to that age now where most of my contemporaries are playing more individual sports than team sports. So I don't know how to play golf. I don't really know how to play tennis. If I had to learn one of these sports that I can play for the next, I see people in their 50s and 60s and 70s playing golf and tennis and pickleball, whatever it may be. Should I learn golf or should I learn tennis? You're noted. You have a tennis league here that has provided content for the show.
I gotta get back into it.
Yeah, you enjoy a day on the course from time to time. Which one should I learn, golf or tennis? Would you rather golf or tennis?
The question is, are you really trying to do something that you're going to do into your 60s, or are you looking for something that you're going to enjoy now?
Well, I'm 38, so 20 years is a long time frame. Let's think about a 10-year time horizon, something that I can play in my 40s. What should I do in my 40s?
Knowing you as well as I do, tennis for sure.
Interesting. Okay.
Because you are not going to enjoy being on the golf course for as long as it takes to be on the golf course.
That's the biggest detriment, in my opinion.
Yes. Yeah. Now, if the goal is, it depends on what your goal is. If the goal is like, I want to be able to do this thing with some of my friends or my brothers who enjoy this thing and I can hang with them, then, golf probably makes more sense. You probably know more people who want to play golf than know more people who want to play tennis. But if you want to have a little bit of a competitive itch, get a good workout, and, be home within 2 hours as opposed to being gone for 5 hours, you play a little tennis. I also think I think the barrier to competency is much lower in tennis than it is in golf.
And then if I can extend this question, there's a big pickleball craze going on. Well, is this something you can learn?
I've not yet played pickleball.
Okay.
But I guess I'm pickleball curious, but I would rather just play tennis.
Okay. All right, good to know. So tennis would be the way to go.
I think you should do tennis.
I'll have to figure out how to learn how to play, but yeah, my wife plays tennis, so I'll learn from her. Be something we can do together.
There you go. We'll mix doubles.
Mixed doubles, okay.
Okay. All right, give me. I'm gonna snake it back around. So let's go around the NFL. What do I have left? Convince me.
And around the NFL, convince me. Okay. If you saw the news this week, you saw that the NFL they had their spring meetings. They're discussing going to an 18-game season, or that's in the conversation. Convince me whether the NFL should or should not move to an 18-game season.
They should move to an 18-game season. Everybody should have 2 buys. They should have 2 preseason games. It's very easy, and then you can go Labor Day to President's Day.
That's my idea. Are you in favor of that?
I am in favor of 18 games. It's because it gets the second bye.
Yep.
The big thing to me is the player health aspect of it. But if you're giving the extra bye in exchange for the extra game, also just like aesthetically, we've got even numbers again.
Sure.
And like the schedule making is easier. I think it's a no-brainer.
Roger Goodell said that consumers want more football and they want fewer preseason games. Are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, yeah. So would you be okay with getting rid of the preseason altogether and just having training camp joint practices?
Would I be okay with it? Yes.
Okay.
I think teams would like that because, well, I think front offices would like that. Coaches would hate it.
Sure.
Right? Because front offices, you could hide the guys who you're excited about, and I feel like the guys winning roster spots in preseason games happens less than we might think. It's really more about the training camp, right? And then once you get them on tape, you're exposing them to other teams. The coaches, though, they're going to hate that. They don't want to be going into week one without having had a chance to put their schemes together and stuff.
Although I think back to 2020,
also
the
just
quality
like the
of play
mechanics,
was not,
the mechanics of if it's a new coaching staff and how things work on game day. I think you need at least one preseason game.
I didn't think the quality of play in 2020 suffered from the lack of preseason. Yeah. So,
not a ton.
And I don't think college football suffers from the lack of preseason.
That's a fair point.
My only reservation with going to 18 games is if you have the same inventory of preseason games and all of a sudden season ticket holders are on the hook for more games, because so it should be if you add regular season games, reduce the preseason. I don't want ticket holders have to pay for more games when.
Well, in theory, it's the same, right?
That's what I'm saying.
You're trading a preseason for
so I'd be in favor of that. If you said keep,
because they're already charged full price for preseason games.
Exactly.
Now, right?
That's my point. So if you say, all right, we're going to add one additional game onto the schedule,
but of course they will.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Preseason should be part of. All right,
it's nice of Roger to pretend as if he wants to do this for the consumer's sake, when in reality it's an opportunity to just make a little bit more money.
But the double bye week, they should institute that now. Even if you have 17 games, basically NFL's become a TV sport. It's more TV than spectator, right? So if you have one more weekend of football inventory, but your team's playing one fewer weekend, I don't think fans are going to mind. Eagles fans would enjoy watching another weekend of NFL games. So I would put the double buy-in right now. It's the easiest thing to sell.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Now let me ask you this: if they go to 18 games, are you still going to be peddling single season records?
That's a great question. I mean, almost by definition, you have to, but there is a major asterisk. Although the single season records apply for 16 when there were 14 game seasons. You just there becomes enough of a sample size that you start to view it over that. But the first few years of our show, when you and I are doing the show 15 years from now, it's kind of okay, there's a 13-year sample size.
I know people don't like math, but let's just make everything a per game. Okay, let's just agree to use the denominators.
Sure, but then what if somebody is injured that year, plays 2 games, rushes for 300 yards?
Well, no, not per, but per season games.
Okay, gotcha.
So
over
everything is
18 game pace, or
16
what your per game pace is.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm fine with that. Yeah.
Okay. All right, let's do Eagles. You predict.
This is actually one. I'm not going to name the person who asked me this, but this one was a question posed to me from somebody else in the Eagles media. And I was initially dismissive of the question, and then I thought about it, and I said, this would make for good show fodder. So here's a scenario for you. The Eagles have the NFL's best offense. Kellen Moore turns Jalen Hurts into an MVP candidate. I shouldn't say turns him into. Jalen Hurts is an MVP candidate with Kellen Moore. They have this great partnership in this offense together. The Eagles lose in the playoffs before the Super Bowl. Kellen Moore's getting tons of interview, or he's the hot coaching candidate. Teams are calling him in. Teams are on the verge of hiring him. What happens? Do the Eagles let Kellen Moore go and start over with a new offense, knowing that when the offensive coordinator left before, this was kind of a problem thing? Or do they say, Kellen, we liked you in 2020. We saw what you did with Jalen Hurts here. We're all about offense here. We're all about the talent. The coaches, I don't want to say fungible, but is less important than the quarterback and the roster. Is this one of those situations where when the Cowboys didn't want Jason Garrett to leave, and so they made sure Jason Garrett became the coach.
Can I ask some questions about
Sure.
the other,
Yeah,
how things all play out?
Yeah.
Okay, so when do they lose?
Let's say divisional round. Not conference championship, divisional round.
Okay. How does the defense do?
Number 12, like you said.
Okay. How has Nick Sirianni's sideline comportment been?
Sirianni's been good. Like, you have no issues with Sirianni. The question is, do you want to, like Sirianni is a strong coach, has done everything you want him to do. Players like him. Players are responding to him. But he's got to start over at quarterback. Oh, he's got to start over at OC.
I don't think that they would pull the switcheroo.
Okay.
I think they would let him go. I think they would.
Do you think they would think about it?
They might think about it. I think what they would do is they would offer, double his salary or something like that, pay him like a head coach level salary to keep him. But I don't think that they would pull that switcheroo.
Okay. Now here's one other part of this scenario. All right. The Cowboys struggle this year. Mike McCarthy's fired. They want to bring back Kellen Moore. All right. So now this guy this OC you're so impressed with in the building would now go to your division rival. Does that factor into it? He has that second interview with the Cowboys scheduled.
They let him leave, but Dom takes him to the airport and puts him on a plane to Abu Dhabi instead. They find some way to
Look,
Jeff Galooly him or something like that.
Yeah. So in all seriousness here, I've been on record saying I think Nick Sirianni's a good coach, and I think he's going to remain the Eagles coach. I think they're going to be good this year, and Sirianni stays the coach. But this is something that I imagine the Eagles think about is if you lose Kellen Moore, like their rationale, kind of behind the scenes for leaning toward offensive coaches is that if you lose your defensive coordinator, you can replace him. If you lose your offensive coordinator, it's much harder to replace. So that's why the offensive-minded coaches have stuck to the offensives. They've been the offensive. They've had their offensive systems. Sirianni, this isn't. If Kellen Moore's running his system and you lose the system, then all of a sudden you're starting over again on offense a bit, unless you just empower Sirianni even more and you say, "You're back, baby."
Do you think is Nick willing to just become wide receivers coach?
I mean, no, I don't. No.
I don't think so either.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. All right. We're through 2 rounds of Tick Zach Bo. And before we get going, if everybody wants to play along, it's a holiday weekend. It's afternoon. You can suck them back if you want to, because Miller Lite is offering that same great taste that you've known all along. A lot has changed over the years, but one thing that hasn't is the great taste of Miller Lite, which sparked this debate. Great taste, less filling. Which is more important? Por qué no los dos with Miller Lite? Since 1975, they have been offering you the same refreshing taste and the lack of filling. 96 calories per can in Miller Lite. You cannot do better than that. Miller Lite keeps it simple, undebatable quality, great taste, only 96 calories. It's the beer that strips away everything you don't need and holds on to what matters most. A light beer that tastes like beer, the original light beer since 1975. And if you're going down to the shore this weekend, bring yourself a case of Miller Lite, and there's nothing better. Spend your day. What else you got going on? You don't have to choose what's best. Miller Lite has great taste and is less filling. Tastes like Miller time to get Miller Lite delivered right to your door. Visit MillerLite.com/PHLY Birds, or you can find it pretty much anywhere that sells beer. Celebrate responsibly. Miller Brewing Company, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, 96 calories per 12 ounces. Fewer calories and carbs than premium regular beer.
I'm always partial to Philadelphia companies. I'm always partial to places that are from here, cater to the people here, and that's TrueMark Financial Credit Union. When you join a credit union like TrueMark Financial, you become a part owner, which means profits come back to you instead of going to shareholders. There are better rates, lower fees, and a better return on savings, and more flexible options with all the same digital tools and tech to make our lives easier. If we had the TrueMark reps on this show, and we said, what's your favorite place to eat in Philly? They wouldn't have to go on to Yelp. They would know what it is because TrueMark has local roots. It's headquartered in Fort Washington where Julia went to high school, and there's 24 branches in the Philly area. They serve our community and people right here at home. Becoming a member of a credit union has so many benefits over being a customer at a bank. It's a total no-brainer. Head over to TrueMark.com/PHLY to learn more and to find a branch near you. That's TrueMark.com/PHLY, and it's federally insured by the NCUA.
Let's do, what do I have left in Around the NFL?
Around the NFL, you have Would You Rather is the only one.
Okay, let's hear it.
Okay. Would you rather Bryce Young with the Kansas City Chiefs, so Andy Reid and their entire roster, or Patrick Mahomes with the Carolina Panthers, so Dave Canales and their roster? And I guess this goes to show if it's all about the quarterback or if it's the environment that's in place.
Patrick Mahomes.
Okay. No,
Don't you think?
No doubt about it. Now, you really liked Bryce Young coming out of Alabama. I remember doing a show with you and
I liked
Sheila.
him,
Yeah. Andy Reid's had success with every quarterback he's ever coached, outside of Mike
Yeah,
McMahon.
I would take the Andy Reid, Bryce Young Chiefs over most teams, but not over Patrick Mahomes.
You got Travis Kelce and Xavier Worthy. You have a defense that
Patrick Mahomes is so good he would get Dave Canales to keep it in his pants.
You have a defense that's loaded with talent. Okay, the Carolina Panthers are 32nd. You know, are lowest in the league in Super Bowl odds. They traded their best pass rusher this offseason. They loaded up on offensive guards. Are you so?
They have the best. They would have the best player at the most important position.
Okay.
The best player who's ever lived at the most important position in sports. Yeah.
Okay.
It is that simple.
So what's their ceiling? Are they playing in the NFC Championship game?
I think the question is, would you rather have the Patrick Mahomes led Panthers or the Eagles?
Interesting. I mean, I love Mahomes, so, but yeah, I would probably rather have the Eagles.
I don't know.
You don't know? Okay.
I mean, I probably would,
Sure.
but I don't know.
Now, let me ask you this: is it all Mahomes, or is it Mahomes and Andy too?
Well, of course, it's both.
No, but that's so we talk about the coach quarterback combination. Like Mahomes is incredible. Mahomes did not have a great team at Texas Tech.
Sure.
He's not one of these guys who's won everywhere he's.
But we have seen Andy Reid in the NFL without Patrick Mahomes. We have not seen Patrick Mahomes in the NFL without Andy Reid, and we know that Andy Reid without Patrick Mahomes has never won a Super Bowl.
But he's been to multiple championship games. Okay, fair enough.
I'm more willing to believe. I mean, we just had this play out with Tom Brady and Bill Belichick, right? The answer we were given the answer.
That's a good. Now, fair. The Patriots replaced. They didn't really have a quarterback replacing Tom Brady. I mean, they had Cam Newton on his last legs. But yeah, that's a fair point. We had the answer there. Okay.
That's good. I mean, that Panthers roster is pretty bad.
Yes.
But I'd still give me the guy who's the best.
Are you selling Bryce Young? Or you're buying Bryce Young. If I had to put, if Bryce Young's stock was NVDIA right now, what would you buy?
What is that?
It's the hottest stock in the market right now.
I don't know.
You gotta get into AI, man.
Oh gosh, ridiculous.
Their stock's worth more than the Germans than all the entire German stock exchange. NVIDIA, yeah.
Okay.
I'm just okay.
I'm thinking, man, Julia. I think I know Julia. First of all, Julia's on the edge of tears, crying. But Julia, are you also thinking back to our dinner at the Super Bowl when Zach was trying to convince us that within weeks the entire country was going to be just a swarm?
Okay,
you would not be able to walk the streets without every single person wearing an Apple Vision Pro as they walk around.
Bo, you're entitled to your opinions. You're not entitled to your facts. That did not occur. I did not say with them. First off, I don't even own. I don't own an Apple Vision Pro. I said when the price. I said there was a time when iPhones were not within the price range of consumers, but as they became more affordable and they became more accessible, there was a period of time in our lives where the idea of an iPhone was not something that was relatively ubiquitous, right? So I was simply saying things change. I saw a stat before I came on here: 74% of American households have Amazon Prime. Okay, think about that. Like 74% of American households pay for the right for 2-day delivery. Not the right, pay for 2-day delivery. So it's easy to mock things now, but things become relatively ubiquitous when it reaches kind of a critical mass, if you will.
AI sucks.
What's that?
AI sucks.
I don't use it in my life, but you would be. I think it's going to become ubiquitous in our children's lives.
Yeah, that's unfortunately true.
That's why, I mean, not to get into, I had this.
I mean, we are in like we haven't even gotten through the first year of this company and PHLY. The larger ALLCITY network is still in its infancy. We're growing, and you were saying, I'll tell you what. The first thing I would ask our CEO, the very first thing I would ask him is, "What's our plan for Apple Vision Pro?" Like, I think we got other things that we got to figure out first.
All right, so let's get back to this. Would you go after Bryce Young or not? Like, are you interested in Bryce? Like, are you buying Bryce Young stock or not?
I mean, I think he'll be better than he was last year. I don't know that Dave Canales is the guy to bring him around, but I think they probably did the right thing trying to build an offensive line to protect him, as opposed to building stuff out elsewhere. But I'm buying, but not like I don't think he's going to be a top 5 quarterback. How about you?
Yeah, I like Bryce Young. I'm buying, not as as a top 5 quarterback. You're very skilled at creating narratives, because I'm reading the chat, and you create this narrative that I'm like thinking about the customers the companies. I'm thinking about the consumers. Like, I'm thinking about what is going to be part of consumer habits over it has nothing to do with the company making it. It has to do with how can the lives of consumers become easier. The lives of consumers have become easier with iPhones. Like, this is
the inverse of your argument with streaming.
I'm not going down that rabbit hole. Although
it is, though. Someone
who was very close to us, he came up to me and he was like, "You were right. Bo was just bullying you." But it was. I found out I did work on that show because I felt really bad about the way I presented myself. I was really disappointed in myself, and I found out what threw me off. It's a Friday show. We might as well. It was the way. You're very skilled at this. It was the way you packaged it. So if you go back and you watch the show, you did not say, "Zach, what are your thoughts on streaming?" That's not what you said. You said, "Zach, why don't you defend the corporate greed of that's
but I didn't say.
Or you said,
but to be fair, before the show started, you said, "You know what? But on the show, I want to make the case for." Like, you came in, saying you made it known that was your side of the position.
I wasn't. Once again, what I was simply saying is that streaming is the way of life for consumers, more so than over the air, consumption of programming. That there are more consumers now who get their content via streaming than via over-the-air stations. I wasn't arguing for the volume of streaming networks. What I was arguing for was
streaming existing. Yeah, nobody is arguing the other side of that.
If you go into the comments, literally, that's what people were arguing. People were saying that it should be. It's always been over the air. It should be over the air. It should be available via cable or how. And I was simply saying that there are more consumers now, and this is what the NFL's argument is. And the other part to that is what the NFL's doing. If they did not have this, there would be fewer games for consumers to watch as well. It would just be like what they're selling inventory to different time slots to different places.
But you do understand that it is not making things easier for consumers.
Do I understand that?
To have it on many different
And what I am
platforms.
saying is that there's more
and it also
games,
costs more. And it costs a lot of money.
Correct. But I'm saying there's more games. So
some of those things are not like the alternative is not these games aren't played nationally. We're talking about like Thursday night games. Those games are played nationally before they were on Amazon Prime.
They were on NFL Network.
Yeah.
Yeah, NFL. So there was. So what they've. So once again, we don't need to go down this rabbit hole.
Okay.
Again,
I do want to get back to positionless players.
My point is there are fewer. There's more consumers watching via streaming now than they are watching over the air. But when it's framed, Zach, go defend corporate greed, then all of a sudden I am put in a defensive position. It's a great strategy by you.
It's a great strategy. It's just
that's
how I know
precisely.
you think.
And fortunately, there were a few people who sent me DMs who actually noticed this. But anyways, that's neither here nor there.
Okay. What's our last miscellaneous question?
Okay. And then we have an Eagles one.
I want to end on the Eagles one.
Yeah, okay. The last miscellaneous question. You predict, do the Phillies set a franchise record and how far do they advance? The Phillies are on pace for 116 victories this year. The franchise record is 102 victories. Do they set a franchise record and how far do they advance?
Yes, they set a franchise record and they lose in the NLCS.
Okay. I told this story last night. I was on radio and I said, when I moved back to Philadelphia, it was in 2011. And one of the things that the Daily News was pitching me at the time, I came back to write these long-form magazine articles. And they're like, the Phillies are the best team in baseball. This is going to be this is the decade of the Phillies. You're going to be writing about the World Series. That was the year that they won 102 games, franchise record 2011. Now they lost in the playoffs. I brought this up as a way of saying, playoff variance in baseball is so high
of course,
that you can win 116 games and be out in the first round just because you face a hot pitcher, right? So I agree. The playoffs are a totally different story, but I don't like this narrative that's out there. They're only beating bad teams. You beat the teams that are on your schedule, and as Jeff Passan says, they're emasculating them right now. So,
and there's the whole if these teams hadn't played the Phillies, they would be over 500 thing, right?
I didn't see that. Okay, that's good too.
So yeah, I mean they're a very good team right now, but baseball is a very long season. They won't be this good the entire season, and then we'll see what happens in October.
Well said.
Okay. All right, let's get this Eagles one.
The Eagles one here. Convince me Dallas Goedert is a top 5 tight end. Yes or no?
No.
And why? Convince me on it. Who are the 5 you take over him?
Dallas Goedert, Zach, has been in the league 6 seasons. How many times do you think that he has finished in the top 5 in receiving yards among tight ends?
3.
Once.
Okay.
And that was 5th in 2021.
Okay.
I think Dallas Goedert has been an awesome player. Mm-hmm. I think aside from Darius Slay and players of that age, he faces the biggest possibility of a significant drop-off.
Yes.
We like to say the best ability is availability, right? Dallas Goedert has had real trouble staying healthy. He's missed 15 games over the last 4 seasons. He's 29 now. He plays a physical brand of football. His yak went way down last year. Now it's hard to disentangle just the offense was so bad last year. He's not the one responsible for that. But it went from 6.9 yards after catch per reception in 2021, which was 5th among tight ends, to 7.6 in 2022, which was 3rd, all the way down to 5.4 last year, which was 13th. Now, he's had some other seasons that were low, like 2020. That was a bad offense. But I worry that we have already seen the best of Dallas Goedert, and I think it's probable that we have already seen the best of Dallas Goedert. On the flip side, Dallas Goedert's value is beyond just being a receiver. He's, along with George Kittle, probably the best dual threat tight end because of what he brings to the table in the blocking game. He allows them to play in 11 personnel and spread things out because of what he brings to the table that way. And, I think back to that 2022 season, which was so perfectly designed, where they were the best running team in 11 and the best passing team in 12, right? He allowed them to do that. He was the key to that. But, you look at the landscape of the guys who are older and his generation, you would still rather have Kelsey and Kittle and Mark Andrews, right? Then you've got the younger guys like Laporta, Trey McBride. Mm-hmm. You would probably have those guys. And then there's the, David Njoku, Evan Engram contemporaries, more young guys like Cole Kmet, your boy Kyle Pitts, Dalton Kincaid. I think the likelihood of Dallas Goedert being a special player relative to the rest of the league at that position, I think those days are probably gone. That said, he's still in the prime of his career. He could have a great season if he stays healthy for 17 games. I would expect his numbers to be big. But from how could this offense underperform without being beset by real injuries? I think Dallas Goedert not being what the Eagles are hoping that he is a possibility there.
It's a fair point. And the genesis of this question was I was looking at fantasy football rankings, and we kind of, speaking in Philadelphia, Dallas Goedert, one of the best tight ends in the league. And so when I saw this, what jumped out to me, this is ESPN's aggregate ratings. I understand fantasy football is not indicative of an overall tight end. You mentioned how skilled he is as a blocker, but it does give you a sense of the top producers in the league. And Goedert was 11 in aggregate rankings, and the players above him were Sam Laporta, Travis Kelce, Mark Andrews, Trey McBride, Evan Ingram, George Kittle, David Njoku, Dalton Kincaid, Kyle Pitts, and Jake Ferguson. And it's crazy to me because I tend to think of Dallas Goedert more closer to Travis Kelce than Jake Ferguson. But clearly, I'm probably looking at it through Eagles-colored lenses. I see Dallas Goedert every week. But each year, it seems to be, well, if he stays healthy and this is the year he's going to break out, and maybe you say what he is a 50-catch, 800-yard tight end, right?
Yeah, and I think it's, if you're starting a team, he's not going to be at the top of your list because he's towards the second half of his career. And if you're going for just the season, he would be higher, but he's got to stay healthy. I think he has the upside of being a top 3 tight end in the league this year. It's just we got to see it. He has not yet really put it all together.
Yeah, fair enough.
Okay,
but he's 29. If he hasn't put it together yet,
that's the thing. Yeah. And that's a real he's been awesome when healthy. He hasn't been able to stay healthy, and I don't know. Yeah,
I was always told when someone shows you who they are, believe them, right? And so at some point you have to stop saying this is who he's going to become, and it's this is who you are, which is good, but. I think you're right. This is the last year we'll see if he's not one of those top 5 tight ends this year, it's not going to happen.
Do you think that they should have done more to backfill him?
I think they should start thinking about long term. Now the thing is, you can add someone next year who's your starting tight end, so you don't necessarily need a succession plan like they had when they went from Selleck to Ertz and then Ertz to Goedert. Right? They had succession plans in house, but I'm not convinced Dallas Goedert's on the roster beyond this season. I mean, they owe him a lot of money beyond the season, but there's not a lot of guaranteed. They have a big cap hit, I should say, but not the guaranteed money. So there is an out in the contract in terms of cash as opposed to cap. I think Dallas Goedert's a really good player. I've said that, but there always seems to be something. And again, when you're 8 years in, it's hard to say, all right, this is the year you're going to become that.
Fair enough. The Whole Foods interaction that you teased earlier, ran into a sicko, Tim, yesterday, and he said, "Oh my God, this is surreal. Guess what I was just doing?" I said, "I don't know." We were in the parking lot at Whole Foods. He said, "I just changed in my car."
Really?
Yeah. Pulled a Zach.
I think a lot of people do that. You were so there's things on the show you're so surprised about that I think are.
I change in my car on occasion.
Okay.
It was not, if I remember correctly, it wasn't that you changed in the car. It was that you had pulled into the Wawa and went to the very corner of the parking lot to do so. When you could have come to the office.
So this was also in our first month here. I don't know if I'm at. I still don't know if I'm at changing at the office level here, but I wasn't ready to do the Clark Kent thing where I'm still meeting all my coworkers. I show up in one thing and then I come out of the bathroom in another.
But the nice thing about this setup here, though, Zach, is you can come in and slip right to the bathroom without anybody really even seeing you.
True, but I like to come say hello and
Maybe you could do that fully dressed.
Fair. Okay. I honestly, I'll go back to this. I didn't put much thought into this. I was leaving the airport on the way home on the way to work from the airport. I pass a Wawa. It's a Wawa I frequent. I know
They know your order.
What's that?
They know your order.
Well, I order on the app if I go there. So I'll pull out the.
Okay, it was just a passing comment.
Yeah, I know that parking lot well. There's a lot of spots to change. Like it's a big parking lot. So I didn't.
You would cased the joint on where to change.
I didn't think much of it, and then I didn't realize it was going to become a topic for the next 6 months or 8 months of the show, 9 months of the show. Similarly, yeah, one thing I'm working on with the show is that I was on Fox last night. I'm driving home and I'm like, you know what? That went well. I did well. I leave the show every single week, and I feel like I need to see
stop beating yourself up.
I need to see a therapist or something.
When the show is over, put it to the side. Yeah. Lock it away. We have 5 shows a week. Everything's ephemeral here.
Maybe so. Anyways,
you want to talk positionless? Did you give this some more thought?
I gave it thought. I don't want to be rude to you. I read the comments as well. People are arguing both sides here. You were very strong against you would not consider the fact
right, because because some people think are telling you that 2 + 2 = 7 doesn't mean that you need to give their argument credence.
When I think of positionless, I think that the player cannot be confined cannot be confined to a traditional position. Okay, that he can play. So I hear what you're saying about multi-positional, but I think those two things, whether by definition or not, have been used interchangeably. Like I said, because it's a basketball term, meaning this guy can guard 1 through 5, or this guy can take the ball up and then he can play in the post. Like positionless means that it's not your traditional guard, not your traditional center, not your traditional forward, but he can play around the court. So when that term has been translated to football, it's been used a player who can play multiple positions. So I see where you're coming from, but I think the way the term is used is the way I use it has become a fairly common use of the term.
I don't agree.
Okay.
That is the way that it is used. When you use your Heat example, the idea of the positionless Heat is not that LeBron James can play 1 through 5. It's that all 5 players on the court can be used interchangeably and can play any position on the court. It is the collective that is positionless. Would you say that Joe McEwing was a positionless baseball player?
No. But
right?
also that
he
term
was able to play multiple positions.
Yes.
So the idea that spawned this argument was Cooper DeJean in the base defense is on the outside, playing outside corner, and in nickel is playing nickel corner. That means that he can play multiple positions that are very much defined positions on the football field. I think that positionless implies that your role transcends the typical parameters of the position, right? So in football, if you want to convince, maybe Tyrann Mathieu was the idea of positionless, right? Because he was doing things that were above and beyond and a little bit more freelance than what is typically projected for that role. For the Eagles team, if you want it, the generous positionless idea would be if you have C.J. Gardner-Johnson and Cooper DeJean and Avonte Maddox on the field at the same time, nobody knows what their responsibilities are going to be at the same time. But what we were talking about yesterday was Cooper DeJean just playing outside corner and playing nickel. That is not positionless. That is just versatile.
So I'm going to counter. I hear what you're saying. I don't think when Daniel Jeremiah uses positionless, he's saying that the 11 players on defense don't have positions and they're all just interchangeable. You're not going to put Cooper DeJean as your edge rusher, right? But what it means is that when you have this player on the field and you're the quarterback, you don't know where he's going to line up on a given play. That he can be on the field for 3 downs and he can line up at 3 different spots every down. So multi-position, yes, but it's positionless in that you don't know if that guy's going to be a cornerback on that play or if he's going to be a safety on that play, if he's going to be the slot, if he's going to be a dime linebacker. He can play all around the formation. So that is what is used with Cooper DeJean as positionless. That on this down, so he's on the field all 3 downs, but he's not the same position each down.
I think where we have talked about this before is like the Isaiah Simmons example, right? And the idea, oh, this guy is just a football.
He was literally positionless. Like he didn't have a position.
Exactly. And it's like, oh, this guy's a football player. It doesn't matter where you put him. He'll figure it out.
Sure.
And that is not, in practice, how coaches work. You got it. Every week, they're putting the game plan together. Every part of the defense has to be predictable, like for everybody else on the field. They have to know what everybody else is doing. And if he can't, he can maybe do a couple things, but he's a linebacker, like this week. That's the position that he's playing. He is going to be confined to that. Just because Cooper DeJean can, in theory, do some different things, doesn't mean that when he's on the field and lined up as a nickel guy, that's his position. I don't know. I think
no, but when you look at players like Kyle Hamilton or Derwin James, they're safeties by position.
Safeties who can do many different things.
But on a given play, and I think you did a good job bringing up Tyrann Mathieu, is that on a given play, the quarterback would not know where this guy is lining up. Typically, you're preparing for a game. You're a quarterback. You're preparing for a game. You know where each guy is going to be playing on the field, okay? And you know when this guy's in the game, he's the cornerback, and he's the deep safety, and you have 11 positions, and everyone fits within the confines of those positions. But then when you have a player like Cooper DeJean who can play multiple positions, he's positionless in the sense that the offense doesn't know on a given play where he's going to line up. So I saw a good comment that said, because I read all the comments, okay, every single
not good
comment,
for your mental health.
And you're actually, I'm learning it's probably right, but nonetheless, I think that's how. That's
nonetheless,
how
you're going to do it anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I believe in finding ways to get better, and if you're not.
Don't you think
I
that,
take the negative comments even more to heart because it's like, all right, I need to learn from that.
But don't you think that the best way for you to get better would be to just have better mental health?
I don't think that. No, I honestly don't think
really?
that. Yeah, because I think that I've always, I mean, if we want to discuss this, I'll discuss this. I think that, like, you can, first of all, I don't think I have bad mental health, but I think that
you don't believe in mental health.
No, I believe
you. Think that's just the woke
believe
media?
You need to preserve your edge. I believe that like if you're at my edge, I can't speak for everyone. My edge is like trying to figure out how I can be better, what more I can do. And there's people around me who say, like, don't you just want to like take a deep breath sometimes? And I hear that, but I'm not wired that way. And I'm not, You
don't think that's what makes you good at what you do?
I think what my edge is that I'm
indefatigable.
I'm pushing to try to get better. That if I'm not better on this show now than I was on September 12th, then shame on me, right? So, and if I'm not trying to get better on the show now than on September 12th, then shame on me. So yeah,
Now, what about the specific difficulty of you're waiting in these comments and there are people disagreeing about the show, giving different pieces of advice?
Well, yeah,
how can you balance you can't please everybody?
I have a poem on my desk, by Rudyard Kipling, and it says, "If all men count with you, but none too much." Right? You take everyone to heart, but you don't enlarge one person's opinion. But overall, there's an aggregate. I'm trying to learn. I don't dismiss anyone's opinion either, right? But anyways, what the comment said was that Bo's argument was correct based on definition. My argument was correct based on usage, like the way the term is used.
Yeah, I think they're also wrong.
Okay, you see, now there's also
I think that in what bothered me so much yesterday was the specific thing we were talking about was he's in this role in one package and in this role in another is not the positionless usage. The positionless usage that has become the thing is the idea of him and C.J. Gardner-Johnson being able to be, pre-snap disguise and you don't know where they're going to go. The specific thing we were talking about yesterday was not under that umbrella.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay.
But yeah, I certainly don't want to, conflate, we had Brendan Brooks on 2 weeks ago. Like, being down on yourself about a show does not necessarily equate to being unable to do the show the next day or something like that. But I definitely think that Yeah, even if it might be bad for the mental health, I think it's good for my overall quality of work if I'm listening to the consumers.
Fair enough. All right, I thought that was good.
Yeah.
That was a nice restrained discussion this time.
Fair enough.
Okay. That'll do it for this episode of the PHLY Eagles podcast. Good initial edition of Tic Zac Bo.
Yep.
We'll be back on Tuesday at noon.
Have a great Memorial Day.
Got another week of OTAs next week, so we'll talk about that. Lots of stuff to get into, as always. And we hope that everybody out there enjoys their Memorial Day weekend. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We will talk to you on Tuesday. And as always, we love you.
We all silly like the mayor.